Good morning, guys. This morning we're going to discuss some of the high-end car audio integration into high-end cars with multiple audio inputs. The reason why we're having this is last week we assisted a dealer in doing the Audi RS5. Truly an exceptional car, but some of the things we need to look for when using this head unit and this system. So this one comes with a high-end system, and leading into that, the cars that most often come into the workshops are Toyota SUVs, the Golf 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, GTI and variants, the Ford Ranger, this is a cab and a half, the very popular next generation Ford Ranger, and this has some challenging inputs when using the AWave or Steg DSPs for integration. The most popular upgrade still in South Africa is obviously the Toyota Fortuner, Toyota GD6, and these are the products that you would use to integrate them into the systems to maintain OEM radio functions, Bluetooth, steering wheel control, voice control, and all your retentions. But you really should try and integrate this product, and we'll discuss today why. And this is particularly because of the 8 inputs into the DSP with 10 out. This one has 4 in, and sometimes you don't have sufficient inputs for a full range signal. And then you add a monoblock. It can either be a monoblock traditionally, adding a monoblock, or you go to put in an active subwoofer. And then you have full sound quality and able to do the tuning to get an audiophile result in an OEM looking car. So here is the Steg. This works the same as the AWave one. Today's demonstration is going to be on the software of the Steg, of the AWave and the Steg, and this is Steg MS-DSP10. Still really an outstanding processor for sound quality output and the results of integration. This is the new 500 monoblock that is paired with the Steg, and these are some of the speakers that you can consider. The Steg Leo is a split in the front. You could have a good impedance of 2.8 to get more output out of your processor on the MS650 in your rear fill. Very, very popular speaker for rear fill or even fronts, and add a second tweeter. A more premium result is using the MLG split and pairing it with either this exceptional full range speaker that has a frequency range of 200 to 15K. This really can go anywhere on a 3-inch dash mount on the windscreen, in the door, anywhere, but you can really make a car come alive if you can get that speaker in there. You could use a traditional 3-inch mid-range in your splits, but ideally what you want to do is be driving a car that you really want to, but not having to do with a poor OEM upgrade in your car. So we'll go through now to some of the software and some of the things that we discussed this week with dealers as they came from each car and challenged themselves to put an audiophile system in. If you're still using products like this is probably not the video for you. So this is where some dealers are, and perhaps they should maybe stay there because this is actually not for them. So let's move into the integration. Okay, so you get the software. If you want to look for the AWave software, you go to awaveaudio.com and to the downloads, and the current one is the AWave 3.6 tool for OTG. Now OTG is a great advantage if you're able to use direct phone into your processor. It gives you a level of sound quality and clarity that is unrivaled, and really something that we use. Most people, 99% of the world, get their music from their phone while driving. Okay, so let's go into the software here, and we choose the we're looking for this one here. We'll connect offline because we don't have a processor connected at the moment. So there it is. So the first thing we want to discuss is we are using high level on the source. Some of the things that you want to notice is that if you have a controller, the high level can be switched to aux, optical, coaxial, Bluetooth, or USB. This AWave A10 version 2 OTG doesn't have an RCA input. It doesn't have a low level input. The limited edition does, and some of the others do. So this is really for car integration where you want to use high level. Now, choosing the high level, we've done that. The first thing we want to do is to go and to ask our installers to get the inputs to get a full range signal. Then you open up the mix, and this is basically how you're going to configure your high level inputs into your car. So let's discuss this. This is really important because on your channel 1 is usually, if we can all use a uniform, use our left, and our odd numbers are the same. So this is basically the channel 1, the channel tweeter. If you fetch the high level input to 1 from a tweeter in a car, let's consider that it might not actually be full range, and you can just on your inputs add, say, channel 3 to go and make a high-end system. I actually personally would actually just take full inputs on all of the inputs that you've got for channel 1. Let's just use an example of the Ford Ranger Next Generation. You get a tweeter signal, a 3-inch signal, a 6-inch signal, and the small underseat subwoofer signal so that you get a full range. And that way you do the same for channel 2, and you use there, channel 2 will be using the right signals. So again, you can just make the right 100 and 100 for your inputs. So you can now sum all of the signals input on all the wires. Now, if we're at this point, let's just discuss something. If you actually have a car, for instance, like a Golf GTR or an Audi product, many of the mid-bass speakers give such a loud input to try and get more input off of their standard factory. You may then choose to accept from channel 1, 5 and 6. You actually might want to put there, you actually only want 80% of that signal from the door to reduce some distortion that comes into the car. So you can actually go 5 and 6 and get 80% of that signal. You don't actually have to have 100% of the signal. And that way, you're able to maybe tune the input signal strength on each channel. You follow this process throughout 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's also important to make sure you get all the bass frequencies. Some of the small speakers in the cars, 6 inches, don't have all the bass frequencies. As in the Ford Ranger, some of the bass frequencies are carried by the 6x9 in the door. So when you've cleaned a full range signal in, you close the mix there, and then you go and you select the speakers. Once you select a speaker and you call it something, front left tweeter, the processor will offer you a 4000 high pass on Butterworth. That usually is a good sounding and a good start on a car that you're actually using. This may change if you have a super tweeter or if you add the high-end SSF product, which would actually you would actually change the frequency and let the tweeter do slightly something different, and then that speaker would take up more of, say, your mid-range frequencies. I use them from 500 to about 12k. So that speaker can be mounted on a dash, in a door, in the BMW door location, in a Mercedes-Benz location. This speaker covers all the frequencies any of those OEM speakers can come close to. This is just superior. Okay, so then if you chose your channel 2 to be one of those, you would actually have a front, left, and then you would choose that as the mid-range. The mid-range gives you a band pass already, and the band pass frequencies there is recommended to 500 to 4000. If it's a standard 3-inch, stay with that frequency. If not, if you have an SSF or Atmos speaker there, you can actually change this to 12,000. And this will give you a frequency response that basically the sound quality is something that you wouldn't have heard. So there we go. This automatically choose front left and front right. They'll be the same. So when you go to channel 4, it will mimic the same frequency response. Okay. Then channel 5, again, this is something for you to customize. You can actually go front left, and if you go mid-range woofer, it offers you a low pass. So wherever you want to start it. This starts at 1600, so I would change it. We basically have a speaker that does 500 there. If you have a two-way system, that would be different, and then you would choose that slightly differently. 500, and then your low pass, and you start with your subwoofer starts there. So this will have a high pass, and then you make that 80 for your sub. Okay, we've gone through this quite quickly. Butterworth, high pass, Butterworth, high pass, 80, apply, 5. So there's your mid-bass frequency. And then when you go to channel 6, it'll again be the front right mid woofer, and then you would change that again also to match that 500, picking up your mid-range, add the high pass, make that 80. And at this stage we basically have got the mirroring frequencies on mid-bass. And then finally you do, this will be done by a monoblock or an active subwoofer. You can actually tune the sub-bass here. Here's a pretty basic reference, although you just notice that your low pass filter has changed to Bezel, change it to Butterworth, and you'll see that slope will be slightly different. Now the Butterworth, I would, if I was using a small woofer, put bandpass crossover on there to protect the woofer. If it's a smaller woofer like an 8 or something, you could actually put like 30 Hertz in there, and then basically the 30 Hertz will give you some roll off. Or if you have a ported enclosure, you can actually just have that 1 octave below the ported frequency, make it 35 Butterworth, and you change that slope to 24 to protect the speaker. It's lower end 24. There we go. Okay, so they're both 24. Apply channel 9, and that's basically what your sub-bass frequency will look at. If you want the roll-off to be more even, you've got a sealed box, you can actually take the high-pass filter off, and then it'll just go back to that. Okay, so that's basically the setup and the tuning. Now something we need to go into. When we discuss about which processor to choose, the reason why I'm asking to try and fit in the AWave 810 version 2 is that you have 8 inputs, and 8 inputs certainly will get you a full range signal through whatever car you're using it in. And this is the challenge, is that you actually don't want to be left with some frequencies out. And sometimes you can get, this is something to note very carefully, that when you use the Ford Ranger next generation, this car has a 6x9 in the door and 3 full range speakers at the top that play high frequencies. And then the sub under the seat is a 6.5. That also doesn't give you a full bass frequency. So you do need to mix the 6x9 in the door and the sub under the seat. The challenge comes here is that the Ford next generation comes with a situation where only one wire can enter the door. So if you choose to put a powerful 6-inch mid-bass in there, you could have put a 6 in a tweeter with a passive, but the problem is you actually then will actually have a frequency response coming through the door. You'd need to tune it to be full range. You then would make like a space and put 2 speakers there. Or you could put a 6-inch for larger mid-bass. They just are very rare to find a 6-inch in a split, 6x9 in a split now. Just remember to sum the door and the sub-bass to get a proper low-end, lower mid-bass frequency through the door. So that's one of the cars that's a challenge. And then this car has a very strong bass output, mid-bass output, and you sometimes need to set that slightly on your input stage on the high level. Like I said there, we've used 80 on the input so that we've actually got a smooth frequency response. You can actually now look at your frequency response if you have an RTA, and you can actually see what response you've got and do some EQ and tuning on the fine EQ there, and then you can set whatever frequency you need to do. Like if you have a dip in your doors, you could actually change that, raise the dip slightly on your mid-bass speaker. So here you go to 200, and 200 you could raise it slightly, and you can see the EQ showing a result there, 200, 250, and if you have a dip at 125, you can EQ that into the door, whichever door is not giving the response that you need. So if you have any questions, you then save it under save delay. This is important. And then you save the preset, you choose position 1. We can't save because we're not connected to a processor. But when you've done all your settings, please don't forget to do that. Now, another tuning aspect about using this processor very effectively is when you have the choose the gain and the delay, you get these two here. You can either set some time alignment here. Time alignment is easily set. You can choose 1 meter per second for the door and 2.5 for the right door, 2.5, and then these time delays are put into the car to make better sounding. But on top here, we have a very important frequency is that we can change the gain, And if you have a very bright windscreen reflection, say if you have a 3-inch and a tweeter or coming off the windscreen and it's really bright, you can attenuate that by actually slightly just easily bringing that down a dB or 2 until it sounds good on the ear, both 1 and 2, and you bring them down together, or you can join them and pair them together. And you can actually just slowly attenuate, say the right hand side or whichever speaker is louder or you need more of. If you want to increase anything, you could do it on the EQ, and basically you'd go to the EQ mid-range, and if you have gaps in your mid-range frequencies, you can actually tune any one of those. 2K is usually a problem in the car, in the door, up, and it's usually a gap here at 800, and you usually have a boost over there. You can bring it down. So here are some of the questions about EQ, mono setting, how you add a mono block, and basically the input stages of how to mix your signals as you ask your installer to wire up your car, and then there are all your options that you have. And then obviously the aux and the optical and the OTG are all pretty much really standard. And this doesn't have an input on your tuning for the mixing on Bluetooth, because Bluetooth is mixed only in stereo left and right. If you have any further questions, please leave it on the video.